In the twilight years of the 21st century, Earth found itself teetering on the brink. Fossil fuels, once the lifeblood of civilization, had become scarce, and now the great engines of the industry began to slow. Power grids dimmed. Cities once ablaze with light flickered under the weight of growing uncertainty. The world had entered the first true global energy crisis. Tensions flared across continents and oceans alike. In the frigid waters of the Bering Sea, a violent confrontation erupted between two old superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, each desperate to secure dwindling resources. Warships clashed in icy storms, their missiles cutting through the bitter air as the Northern Sea turned crimson with conflict. It was a grim echo of Cold War hostilities, reborn in the name of survival. Yet even as Earth burned and bled, humanity looked upward for hope. In 2045, a monumental achievement broke through the clouds of despair. The New Horizons colony, carved into the lifeless dust of the moon. This was no temporary outpost, but a fully operational settlement, a bold permanent step beyond the cradle of Earth. Built as a joint venture between China and the United States, it served as both a political symbol of uneasy cooperation and a functional mining base, tasked with extracting helium-3 and other rare resources hidden beneath the lunar surface. New Horizons stood like a promise, proof that even in the face of crisis, humanity could still reach for the stars. By the dawn of the 23rd century, Earth had become a fractured world. Its once proud nations dissolved into a patchwork of semi-autonomous sectors. These sectors, though independently governed in name, were bound together under a single, overarching authority, the sovereign colonies, a global Earth government born from necessity rather than unity. Centuries of unchecked industrialization had taken their toll. The skies were choked with smog, oceans depleted, and fertile lands turned to dust. The planet's bounty was all but spent, and with each passing year, survival became more difficult. Water was rationed, energy was hoarded, cities withered beneath the weight of scarcity. It was in this age of quiet desperation that humanity turned its gaze to the stars. Sovereign colonies launched sweeping initiatives to colonize distant worlds. Bold pioneers, driven by hope or desperation, signed away their past lives for the chance to start anew. Wealthy corporations followed swiftly behind, seizing the opportunity to carve out new empires among the stars. But such endeavors were not without danger, and so the sovereign colonies' armed forces were dispatched to oversee the expansion, ensuring order and control on the edge of the unknown. What followed was an era of turbulent growth. Steel cities rose beneath alien skies, domes shimmered under foreign suns, and the great dream of an off-world survival took root. For the first time in generations, humanity wasn't just surviving, it was reaching outward, reshaping its destiny, one colony at a time. In the year 2214, a seismic discovery shook the scientific world to its core. Buried beneath the depths of the Gulf of Mexico, hidden for eons beneath layers of rock and silt, an ancient alien artifact was unearthed. It would come to be known as the Black Marker. What began as a deep-sea geological survey quickly spiraled into a global revelation. Analysis of the structure revealed a staggering truth. The Black Marker had not originated on Earth. It had arrived 65 million years ago, crashing into the planet in a cataclysmic event that coincided precisely with the extinction of the dinosaurs. This implication was chilling. It hadn't merely observed the end of the age, it had caused it. But its influence didn't end there. The artifact pulsed with a strange, persistent energy. Researchers theorized that this signal had reached far into the genetic makeup of early life forms, guiding evolution along a path that will eventually lead to the rise of Homo sapiens. In other words, the Black Marker may have not just been the witness to Earth's history, it may have authored it. What had once been a myth, conjecture, or silence among the stars was now terrifyingly real. Humanity had not only stumbled upon a relic of alien origin, it had uncovered a silent architect that had shaped the course of life itself. In 2215, the world changed forever, not by the hand of government, nor through the revelation of scientific breakthrough, but by the voice of a single man. Michael Altman, a brilliant but unassuming geophysicist, had been part of the original research team studying the Black Marker in the Gulf of Mexico. As his understanding of the artifact deepened, so too did his unease. He saw the secrecy surrounding the project, the classified reports, the military presence tightening like a noose. What they were uncovering wasn't just alien, It was dangerous, and it was being hidden. Refusing to remain silent, Altman went public. He revealed the existence of the black market to the world, speaking of its alien origin, its strange influence, and its possible connection to the origins of human life. His message was met with shock, awe, and fear. Some dismissed him as a lunatic. Others hailed him as a prophet. In the aftermath, Altman's mysterious and untimely death only fueled the fire. Conspiracy theories blossomed, and with them, something far more enduring: a fate. From the ashes of the secrecy rose the Church of Unitology, a religion that would come to revere the black marker as divine, and Altman as its martyr and messiah. To his followers, he was no longer just a scientist. He was the first to understand the truth, the first to be silenced for it. In death, Michael Altman became more powerful than he had ever been in life, the canonized founder of Unitology, and the beginning of a belief system that would echo across the stars. Ultimately, the stars held no salvation. Though humanity had stretched its reach across the void, establishing colonies on distant worlds, exacting exotic minerals from barren moons, and tapping the rich veins of alien planets, nothing could quench its hunger. The dream of a second chance among the stars had become just another cycle of consumption. And worse, it was accelerating. By the mid-23rd century, Earth and its colonies were devouring resources faster than they could be replenished. Whole worlds were stripped bare within decades, their skies choked with the same industrial poison that had once suffocated Earth. Hope began to wither beneath the weight of unchecked greed and desperation. Tensions mounted as colonies grew resentful of Earth's demands. Trade routes became hostile, and alliances fractured. When diplomacy failed, the guns spoke. The resource wars had begun. They were brutal. Sprawling conflicts fought not over ideology or territory, but over the last dregs of fuel, water, and raw material. Mining stations were seized at gunpoint. Convoys vanished into the black. Planets once full of promise became graveyards, their surfaces scorched and bloodied. For the first time in centuries, extinction loomed not as a distant fear, but as an accelerating reality. Stars had offered humanity a future, but had brought back its past with it. And now it was dying among the ruins of its own ambition. In the aftermath of the sovereign colony's failed attempts to harness the limitless energy of the markers, a project shrouded in secrecy and marked by unexplained disappearances, humanity found itself once again scrambling for survival. The newly formed Earth government, or EarthGov, rose from the ashes of the old regimes, promising stability and reform. Yet despite its efforts to redistribute what resources remained, the bleeding of civilization could not be staunched. The resource wars raged on, devouring worlds, lives, and hope alike. But salvation, as it often did in human history, came not from diplomacy or peace, but from industry. In the early 25th century, the Concordance Extraction Corporation unveiled a radical new solution: planet cracking. No longer limited to scavenging from moons or digging through the crusts of hostile colonies, humanity now had the means to harvest entire planets. With massive vessels known as planet crackers, the CEC could slice apart dead or mineral-rich worlds, pull them into orbit, and mine their cores for raw materials on a scale never before imagined. It was a technological miracle, and a moral abyss. Yet for a civilization on the brink, the implications were undeniable. As the first planets were cracked open and their resources funneled back to Earth and its colonies, fires of war began to die down, trade resumed, stability returned, and the resource wars, after decades of chaos, finally came to an end. To many, planet cracking was hailed as the dawn of a new golden age. But beneath the surface of progress, something ancient and terrible still stirred in the dark. Forgotten by most, but not by all. The markers had not been destroyed, only hidden, and their influence, like echoes of the wars they helped to fuel, had merely gone silent, waiting. In the waning decades of the 25th century, as EarthGov tightened its grip on the outer colonies, tensions simmered to a boil on the red planet. Mars, once a beacon of colonial progress, had grown restless under the ever-watchful eyes of EarthGov's bureaucracy. Its capital, Mars Capita, stood as both a symbol of human achievement and the reminder of its subjugation. Decades of overtaxation, economic exploitation, and political marginalization bred discontent among its citizens. To many Martians, the dream of autonomy no longer seemed radical, it felt necessary. The riot began as protests. Peaceful demonstrations filled the streets of Mars Capita, echoing with chants of self-determination and secession. But when EarthGov forces responded with curfews and crackdown operations, the city ignited. What followed were a series of violent uprisings, coordinated strikes on government buildings, sabotage of transit hubs, and clashes between rebel cells and EarthGov security forces. In the dust-choked alleys of the Martian capital, the movement fractured quickly, divided between idealists and militants, weakening its effectiveness against the heavily armed occupation. Despite the passion behind the cause, the Mars independence riots ultimately failed. EarthGov reasserted control through martial law, deploying elite forces to dismantle resistance networks and re-establish dominance over the colony. By the decade's end, the flames of rebellion had been extinguished, at least on the surface, but the scars remained, and deep beneath the Martian soil, in forgotten bunkers and silent cities, the dream of independence still flickered in the hearts of those who remembered the riots, not as a failure, but as a beginning. In the wake of the Titan Station disaster in 2511, a disaster so vast it erased an entire orbital city from existence, EarthGov found itself reeling. The official narrative collapsed under the weight of leaked footage, conflicting reports, and the whispers of unspoken horrors tied to the forbidden marker experiments. Public trust, already fragile, began to splinter. Within the fractured corridors of EarthGov's infrastructure, cracks deepened. Key supply routes faltered. Communication systems became strained. High-ranking officials resigned or disappeared under mysterious circumstances. It was not just the loss of a station. It was a wound to EarthGov's authority that refused to heal. Sensing opportunity in the chaos, the Church of Unitology acted swiftly. Over the next 3 years, Unitologist operatives and sympathizers redoubled their efforts to undermine EarthGov's military power and influence. Infiltration campaigns targeted high-level EarthGov command, while propaganda flooded colonies and sectors with messages denouncing EarthGov's corruption and calling for a spiritual awakening through the markers. Protests, sabotage, and mysterious accidents among military installations became increasingly common. The Church framed itself not as an enemy of humanity, but as its salvation. And in a galaxy riddled with fear, loss, and growing unrest, many began to listen. By 2514, EarthGov stood more isolated than ever, still clinging to power, but no longer unchallenged. The conflict between state and faith was no longer hidden. It was accelerating towards something far more dangerous than politics. In the shadow of growing unrest and crumbling authority, a more radical arm of Unitology emerged. The Circle, led by the zealous and enigmatic Jacob Danik. The Circle did not merely reject EarthGov's policies, they declared open war against them. To Danik, EarthGov's secret experiments on the markers were not just crimes, they were blasphemy. And for that, there could be no forgiveness, only judgment. Under Danik's leadership, the Circle launched a series of coordinated campaigns across known space. These were not mere acts of protest, they were crusades. Marker shroud facilities, designed to suppress the signals of the markers and prevent necromorph outbreaks, were systematically targeted. Once compromised, these facilities unleashed horrors beyond comprehension. Entire colonies fell silent, and it was widely presumed they had been consumed by necromorph infestations, triggered in the wake of the Circle-led terror attacks. The war the Circle waged was not one of ideology alone, it was apocalyptic in scope. Danik believed the coming of the markers was not to be feared, but embraced. Humanity's ascension through convergence, he claimed, was destiny. EarthGov stood in the way of that destiny, and so it had to be dismantled. One system, one colony, one world at a time. After a harrowing battle in the frozen world of Tal Valentes, Isaac Clarke and John Carver achieved the unthinkable. They destroyed the moon orbiting the planet, the source of the marker signal, and the beating heart of the necromorph scourge on Tal Valentes. But in doing so, they triggered something far worse. The destruction did not go unnoticed. What followed was a horrifying revelation. The burning moons, ancient world-devouring intelligence, born from countless convergence events, had been watching. With Tal Valentes' moon gone, they stirred from the dark, migrating across the stars towards their next harvest. When the CMS Terra emerged from deep space into Earth's orbit, Clarke and Carver expected chaos. What they found was far worse. Nothing. Earth was silent. The moon, its colonies, and orbital defense platforms gave no response. There was no welcome, no warning, no command, only static. And then the gargling began. Faint, wet snarls, inhuman breathing, the unmistakable sound of something alive, but not human, echoed through the Terra Nova's comm systems. Clark and Carver listened in horror as the truth became clear. Earth's population was already under siege, if not already consumed. The Brethren Moons had arrived before them, and the convergence event had begun. No authority remained to coordinate the defense. No fleet scrambled to intercept. EarthGov, already fractured and infiltrated by the Circle, was gone. The final stand of humanity was not marked by a battle cry, but by silence, and a grotesque symphony of a species being torn apart.